I'm very concerned about the moral vacuum that is being created by exactly what he said of trying to remove Christianity from public service, or Christians from public service. Now imagine for just a moment where that would leave America. I don't think you have to think too hard, because I think where it would leave you is incidents like what we saw last week, or at least we saw the video of it last Friday in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, joining me now to talk about this and more about the standards of law enforcement and what this lack of morality could do is Wiley Thompson. He's a former assistant director at the FBI, and he was also second in command at the fourth largest sheriff's office in the United States at Broward County, where he was responsible for 6,000 employees. Wiley, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony.
You and I have actually had a conversation about the disturbing video out of Memphis. I mean, you and I both, having been in law enforcement, slow to draw conclusions based upon, one side of information. But again, this was body camera, multiple shots. No justification for what we saw out of there.
None whatsoever. I watched the video, and it was very difficult for me to do. I saw no justification for that, and it's very unfortunate, and it's going to be a setback for the law enforcement profession because the way the public looks at law enforcement already, and they will believe that all police officers and deputy sheriffs and all are like that, but that's not the case at all.
You're absolutely right. I'm pro-law enforcement. I should have said that earlier. I continue to be involved in law enforcement, very pro-law enforcement. And it is unfortunate that this is going to cast a very bad light on law enforcement. But I think we need to look at it. You heard Jacob's story. You're seeing this as well, where there is this this effort to keep Christians, or at least people who would express their faith, out of positions of public service. Are you not concerned? Having been in law enforcement for a long time, you've seen the types of folks and the power that they have and how it can be abused. Are you not concerned that without a moral foundation, this thing could go south pretty quick?
I am very concerned, Tony. And you look at the police agencies around America, and many of them are understaffed right now, are looking to recruit young men and women, and they are desperate for getting people. We want young people like Jacob. Officer Kersey, he's the type of character that we want because of his beliefs, his moral foundation. And someday that young man could become a leader in the law enforcement profession. If you call 911, he's the one you want to come to your home, because he's going to take a good moral stance on everything and do the right thing because he has biblical beliefs.
Well, you mentioned the standards. In fact, what happened in Memphis is because of the short. They're 500 officers short. So they've reduced the standards twice. First, their educational requirements, and then their physical requirements.
Yes.
And in fact, two of these 5 officers, if I'm not mistaken, actually had charges, had been convicted previously of some abuse charges. And so now the department is even offering waivers for people who have been convicted of felony charges.
That is absolutely nonsense, and it always ends in a disaster. There are many other agencies who have tried this over the past 30 years and have failed, and the same thing is happening in Memphis. We want young people who meet the current standards. Now, we need to be objective. We need to occasionally look at those standards to make sure they're still applicable, but we certainly don't want to change them for political reasons, because we want diversity, racial diversity, or anything like that. We want people with good character, moral character, even if it means we need to run short for a while in law enforcement until we can find those people. And we need to encourage our young people in our churches and in our homes to look at public service, to look at being a firefighter or a police officer, to look at that as a potential career and occupation to be able to serve the Lord in that capacity.
Yeah. I mean, I predicted this back in 2020, that when the defund the police movement and the left started beating on the police for what happened in Minneapolis, that it was going to drive good men and women away from the law enforcement community. And so department after department, you started having early retirements. every department head that I've spoken to they're having difficulty recruiting. And so this would result in lowering of the standards, bringing in individuals that would only make the situation worse. Memphis is a prime example of that.
That is correct. And so we need to lean in. We need to lean in as adults, as parents, as mentors, and people who have influence in our communities and our sphere of influence, and to be able to encourage these young people to look at public service as an opportunity for them to serve and to minister unto the Lord.
But we first have to make sure that those in charge in those agencies will not discriminate against men and women of faith and require them to check their faith at the door in order to serve.
That is correct, because they are accountable to us.
Right.
Those men and women are accountable
Because
to us.
as long as they have that position, then they're not going to get those men and women. Our military's facing the same situation with this
Yes.
woke agenda in the military. They cannot meet their recruiting numbers because men and women of faith, of real faith, want to live out their faith.
And Tony, as you know now, there's a trend of law enforcement agencies, the HR department, actually going online to look at our social media. So they actually are scanning social media before they even invite the recruit to come in for an interview.
Yeah.
I mean, it is possible now with this new law that was passed, the Marriage Act, for them to be able to discriminate against a candidate simply because of something they've said that was a biblical basis for what they said about marriage, and to be able to be able to discriminate against them. We don't want that. So we need to hold them accountable, and we need to press forward. I would like to see this young man, Jacob, rehired and to be able to go back into that department. Someday he could be a leader.
Wiley, we got to leave it there. Always great to talk with you. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome.